Well, hi again. Chores are all done. It's Sunday. Got a nice chunk of time today to put into some folio work. So I thought it might be nice to sort of tag along with my process today. It'll be something I'm wanting to do another one in the Wind in the Willows series. I've got a bit of an idea in my head in mind, but I thought it might be nice to sort of track going from that idea to what ultimately would be a finished piece. I'd be surprised if I managed to get it all finished today, but we'll see how we go, and we can just check in as the piece is progressing, and I can just talk through some of my decisions, where I get my inspiration from, cover off some of the references. That's the kind of stuff that is interesting to you, then stay tuned. And we'll see what we get at the very end. The weekend is absolute prime fodder for working on folio pieces to keep the work ticking over. Part of that strategy for showing that I'm always busy, always productive, and trying to find the pieces that resonate with an audience out there, including publishers. So we'll start with a bit of reference. Got an idea in my head of Mole and Ratty on the water in a rowboat, classic image from Wind in the Willows. I've got an idea of them perhaps coming out from underneath an arched bridge. So I'll look up some references for boats and for bridges just to give me a rough idea. I find Pinterest is still really a great source of reference, even though it's becoming more and more flooded with AI images. It's still a great way to just sort of generate a few ideas, and particularly thinking about different angles. I've got in my head an idea of what the angle for this particular piece might be, where the sort of like the point of view might be from, but sometimes that can change depending on what sort of references that I see, and I don't always, very rarely in fact, am able to translate exactly what's in my mind into to the end, but that's okay, because often it's just an exciting adventure to see where it actually turns out. So first thing is some rowboats on Pinterest, and then we'll have a look at some bridges. And already there's some, right off the bat, there's some interesting pieces there, some nice angles that I can easily see my character sitting in, and there's even a couple of reference images there of people in boats rowing, which will be really useful as well. So that's a good starting point. And now here's some stone bridges over water was my prompt for this, and these are probably a little bit too idyllic and almost medieval, really cool images. Maybe there's something I can adapt from that, but I'm probably looking for something a little bit more typically English, river style. So just popping English in front of stone bridges, and I'm starting to get a little bit closer to the sort of thing that I'm looking for. And this is great angle for what I had in mind, with a sort of bridge sort of receding off into the distance, with some hills in the background. And if you can just imagine in your mind a rowboat right up in the foreground there with Ratty and Mole in it, that's kind of what I'm aiming for. Okay, got my camera set up over my shoulder the best way that I can in this space, so I hope this will be useful. You'll be able to see some things. I'm going to do this work in Procreate today, and these series of illustrations I've been working on lately, I've been doing it in a square format, partially because it kind of fits really nicely into Instagram, but also I just like the square as a bit of a frame at the moment, and we'll see how long I keep doing that. So I'm just going to pick a 4,000 by 4,000 canvas as a starting point. And in my first layer, I'm just going to pick a darkish colour, and I have a 6B pencil as my one of my favourite brushes, which I find really useful for doing initial sketching. And I've just got the opacity sort of set around about 50%. And sometimes I will drag in the circle that I'm using as the window for the other pieces, just to give me a sense of where things go. But I think for now, I can probably imagine where that's going to be. So with the reference in mind, just sort of starting off with the bridge, I think it'd be nice to sort of get the background elements down. So I'm sort of thinking like there'll be something like the boat will be somewhere around here, and you know exactly how big in the foreground and it'll be, I have no idea. I expect it will be Ratty will be rowing will be at the front, and Mole will be at the back taking in the surroundings. Obviously very rough at this stage. Just trying to get the composition down at this stage. So then if we have something like this bridge in the very background, look at how far away it needs to be and that sort of thing. And, you know, something like that angle for the bridge maybe, and we can just imply that they've sort of come out from underneath it. Want to be able to leave a little bit of space in this up here, just a hint at what might be the hills with some trees and the like there for the countryside. If possible, a little bit of the bank with some of the titular willows perhaps in view, or maybe there's some willows that are coming down as a bit of a frame sinking in from here. And then something in the very foreground that might be a little bit darker, which could be like the bank that's very close to where they've either embarked from or they're arriving at. We can have some kind of sort of silhouette type thing. That might be nice there too. I really like about this 6B brush too, if you ever use this in Procreate, is like a pencil, with your point straight down, you get a very clear line, and it's also pressure sensitive. But if you turn on the side, you can get this kind of nice quick filling of value, just to get an idea of where the value shapes might be in this. So there we go. That's like very rough at this stage. But what I might do is just work this up a little bit more before I drop it right back in opacity and start perhaps putting some of the line work over the top. And then once the line work's in, we can think about what the colours might be. Yeah, this happens a bit. This is starting to develop the drawing a little bit further. This is just the rough still, but just trying to get the characters right. And of course Barney's interested in what's going on and adds to the level of difficulty, but you know, it's nice to have some company. You can see I've got the boat now a little bit more fleshed out. Again, this is a bit of reference from Pinterest, which was sort of nice angle, nice wooden featured seat at the back there, which I kind of like. And I also had a look at some references for Ratty in Wind in the Willows, just to see whether or not, or what he's typically drawn wearing, and whether or not he has a hat on and all those sorts of things. I also had my old version of the Wind in the Willows illustration that I had done quite a while ago now, that was received quite a bit of attention, which was really nice at the time. It's probably the piece that's most commented on from my back catalogue. But I think the characters in that I'm sort of changing slightly. I don't really like the way that I did Ratty back then, so maybe I'll try and find a slightly new version of Ratty, and maybe Mole will stay similar. It's a slightly different style now. thought it'd be worth mentioning at this stage that I know that I probably won't see Raddy's arm, or a lot of Raddy's arm here. You might see a little hint of this arm at the back there curving in, but I think it's kind of nice to draw it in just to get a little bit of a sense of where his hand would be, or his little ratty paw would be, so that when I draw the other oar, I can get a good idea of where it might be coming from. And it's like just one of these tips that I picked up along the way that from other artists, and it really helped me with my proportion. When I look back at some of my other drawings and I see some of the arms are just a bit wonky, it's mostly because I had drawn the clothing first and then I had some of the arm showing out or the hand showing out without actually thinking about where the arm was inside that clothing, and so the hand was often just disconnected or coming from a really weird space. So even if it's not going to be in my drawing, I'll still sort of like rough it in, so I've just got an idea of the angle there. For the bridge, I don't feel like I need to look back at the reference to try and get it all perfect. I think really the reference did its job of sort of giving me an idea of the potential angles here, and I can sort of just make up the rest. I think most people kind of have their own shorthand for what bridges look like anyway, and I don't want the bridge to be like the hero of the piece and be so detailed that it just draws attention away from the figures in the foreground. So really, it's almost like a shorthand of what a stone bridge might be, enough for it to make sense in the composition and not compete too much with the characters up front. Okay, so I'm kind of getting to a spot where I'm happy with the composition. The thing I did drop, as you can see, I did drop in that very faint circle background there just to give me an idea of where the elements are going to overlap, because part of the style that I've been doing with these little square spot illustrations is to have them sort of breaching the boundary of this circle in places, just overlapping. So just enough of the boat peeking out here, and perhaps some of these little trees in the background just poking out of that edge as well. So from here, we'll go to perhaps some more polished lines, and at the moment I've got multiple layers here, just so I could play around with the composition a bit. So I had the boat and the figures on separate layers, I had the bridge on a separate layer, and what I'll end up doing is I'll just collapse all of those down, drop the opacity back on that. In fact, we can do that now, just squeeze those together. To collapse them in Procreate, and then slide the opacity down. 25% will be nice, so you can just faintly see the drawing there, and I'll be able to, on a new layer, come in over the top with some more polished lines. So you can see Raddy is coming along. I've kind of left this kind of weird looking ghostly eye there with the intention that I'll probably use colour to fill that in and add a highlight to it. Ended up making his nose a little bit smaller and making the hint of the smile appear at the front here rather than further back, as you can see that I had in my rough. The lines are exactly perfect at the moment, but they're getting there. I'll probably tighten them up a little bit, and you can see I'm kind of happy with that as my moldy at the moment. So one thing I should have done a little bit earlier in this that I always forget to do is flip my canvas. Something obviously in a digital space you can do just to check that your proportions are right. Now, obviously I have a lot of leeway with characters like this, like anatomical correctness is not going to be something people will be looking for in this case, but it can sometimes show up some interesting mistakes. So in Procreate, under Canvas, so I got a little tool icon here, Canvas, you can go to flip horizontal, and I actually wonder if that's even a nicer composition for this. Like, is it better to have the boat going from left to right than from right to left? That kind of like this actually. Maybe this is where the piece goes from here. All right, quick check-in. Done a little bit more fiddling around, a little bit of correction of some of the lines and the proportions of Ratty's face in particular. I kind of like his cute little half smile there, and I couldn't resist actually colouring his eye in because I was just getting a bit creeped out by his blank eyeball. That can stay there for now. I'm also tidied up a little bit of Molly's attire, so now he's got a little bit of a cravat, and the clothing kind of makes a little bit more sense to me now. And I also gave him just a little bit more indication of where his hair might be. All right, so a quick check-in after the foreground elements have been put in, just to see how that affects the composition. I kind of like it at the moment. I'm not 100% sure about these fronds that are on this side here, but I do like the fact that they're overlapping the boat, which helps sort of set this idea of the depth, and this is definitely in the foreground. And I'm also not sure about whether or not I want willow branches coming down on both sides. I don't kind of mind that as a frame at the moment, but it's possible that it might just be on this side and these ones end up not making the final cut. The next part now is kind of like one of the therapeutic parts I alluded to in my last video, which is, in this case, I just want to block in where the colours will go by painting in white behind the main components on each of the different layers. So I'll paint white behind our two figures in the boat on a separate layer. I'll paint white into the foreground on a separate layer, likewise the background. And that way I can sort of see what this will look like properly without these lines showing through, for one. But also, two, it allows me to use clipping masks to keep my colours reasonably well confined to the elements that I'm focusing on. You can see I've changed the background colour to this quite nice burnt orange, but mostly just so I can see where I've missed some filling in. So if we have a look from foreground to background, got our foreground lines and the colours, or is the flat whites. It's kind of nice with the orange, isn't it? And then we've got our figures in their boat, Ratty and Mole, and we've got our background, there's our background lines and the whites for those as well. So if we take the background colour off for a moment and we just increase the opacity of that circle in the background, you can kind of see where we're at. So the water and the sky and the clouds can all be coloured in separately. So that might be a good place to pause things. At least I've got no real sense for how long all of these little snippets are going to take once I've stitched them together. But I've got a sense that I won't be able to add the colouring stage in and keep this video down to a reasonable length. So I'll make that another video. I'll make that the next instalment, my process for how I add digital colours to these little illustrations that I've been doing. My simple pleasure for this video, it's hard to go past a hot cup of tea, to be honest. Recently discovered New York breakfast as a little bit of a treat. Has a very lovely faint smell of pancakes. But I've never really got into flavoured teas before, but I'm really liking this one. So that's my simple pleasure for today. Thanks for tuning in. Here's my co-host. He can't seem to stay out of the videos these days. And we'll see you in the next video for the colouring stage. See ya.